Good morning, John. I just want to welcome you to Ministry with Coffee, and we're so glad that you decided to join us today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, you have an incredible story, and I think the listeners are going to be moved by your story and also how that story has changed your life and your family's life and the ministry that has been birthed from that. And so I want them to hear what God has done in your life. So could you just share a little bit about your story?
Sure. So I was a military kid, grew up in and around the military. Did not join the military when I graduated high school. Thought, oh, I can do it on my own. Waited several years, got married, had a couple kids, and then said, I think I'm ready to join the military. And I was 24 when I joined the military, so it was an experience. Being the older guy because you're in basic training with a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids. Uh, Grew up Catholic, didn't really have a relationship with God. I knew who God was. I knew who all the saints were. I knew all of that stuff, but I didn't have that relationship with Him. In fact, while I was going through basic training, I would go to church just to get that hour break from the drill sergeants, which most people you talk to military wise, they did the same thing. So I ended up going to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which turned out to be a great thing. 9/11 happened and we deployed right away, and it was just the trends of deployments just took off. In 2005, Sarah said, hey, you've been gone. At that time it had already been three times, where it was just back-to-back deployments. If I wasn't at deployment, I was at a school. She was like, you got to stay home for a little while. Is there any way you could take an instructor job, do something so we're at home? So yeah, that kind of worked out, and I spent 3 years still at Fort Benning. So altogether, I was at Fort Benning 6.5 years. And then they said, hey, you have a choice. You can either go back to Bragg or you can go to Alaska. Picked
Mhm.
Alaska, got to Alaska in July, and then flew out a couple months later to Afghanistan. And 9 June 2012 happened. Um, my team, I got them up. We were going after a high value target in the middle of the day.
Mhm.
About 35 minutes into the mission, 40 minutes into the mission, we ended up hitting a 500-pound IED. Blew our truck 27 feet into the air, flipped it upside down, instantly killed my driver, Tyler Davis, who my youngest daughter is named after. I was pretty much dead at that point. Um, they couldn't find a pulse, couldn't find anything, had to cut me out of the truck,
Oh,
um,
goodness.
actually put me in a body bag and were filling out the toe tag. And God's miracle, God's grace, uh, I sat up and scared them all to death. And then they ended up calling in another medevac bird, got me out of there. But in that process, somebody, uh, they weren't sure I was going to make it. So they were like, hey, we want you to be able to talk to your wife. So here's the satellite phone. Call your wife. So I reached out to Sarah, called her, said, hey, this is what happened. I can't feel my legs. There's a lot of blood. I don't know what's going to happen. I just want you to know I love you. I did surgery in Afghanistan to stabilize me, and then said, hey, we're going to fly him to Launchstool, Germany, and he may make it there, he may not. Made sure they ended up having to do surgery again in uh, Germany to make sure that I was stable for the flight. So I ended up being stable enough. They kept me on the plane, flew into San Antonio, and then everything is a blur. In 6 months, I had 35 surgeries, but I had to learn to walk and learn to talk again because somehow in there, I don't know if it was from being tubed or whatnot, but my voice kind of went away. We worked through that. And you would think you get blown up with an IED, you would turn to Christ. And I didn't. I made a bunch of false promises to God. I didn't fulfill a single one of those promises at the time. God, if you help me walk again, uh, if you get me through this, I'll go to church, I'll do all this stuff. Basically, I refer to it now and in my book and stuff as being a crisis Christian. Um, I had no intentions of following through any of that stuff, but he helped me through all of it. Not now looking back on it, he was there the entire time. Um, go through. get out of the hospital, still in San Antonio. Um, they're trying to decide what they're going to do with me. So they made the decision to med board me out and retire me from active duty, which my identity was being a soldier. My identity was being a jump master, was being a platoon sergeant, was being, that guy, that alpha male that, had no problem kicking in doors, doing what had to be done, running and gunning. We moved to Vegas. It's 2013 now. And for probably 3, 4 years, I just kind of searched of what I wanted to do. I had to get a job where I went into security for a major nightclub in Las Vegas, which meant I was now working nights. I'm battling PTSD. I'm battling anxiety. I'm battling depression. I'm battling all of the stuff that went along with my injuries. And just, it was one thing after another. Um, Bought a Harley, started riding with an outlaw motorcycle club, and did that for a couple of years and realized, what am I doing? I have an opportunity to be at home and I'm not spending time at home. I would rather go out and ride than spend time at home with my family. Made the decision to drop my patch, and that didn't go over very well. And then in that process, Sarah had made the decision that either she was going to leave me or I was going to go get help. She was at her wits' end. She was done. And at first, I was angry. I was like, "No, nah, you're not going nowhere. It's not going to happen." And she found a uh, marriage retreat for disabled veterans, which happened to be Operation Hail Our Patriots. It's a Samaritan's Purse project, where they take you to Alaska, and it's a week long. And basically, they introduce you back to God and they help you through. Um, and she didn't tell me that that's what we were doing. She told me it was a salmon fishing trip in Alaska with maybe a little bit of Bible study. And I was like, I could. It's like a timeshare. I could blow off a couple hours doing that, and then fish the whole time. No big deal. I got this. Um, Boy,
Oh,
was I
this is going
wrong.
to be good. This is going to be a good part of the story.
The third day we were there, one of the chaplains pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you and I need to have a private conversation." I was
Mhm.
this. I'll be honest, and I've apologized to him, and him and I are friends now. He's one of my mentors, and his name is Steve. And I was like, "Yeah, this ain't gonna go the way you think it's gonna go, there, Pappy. This ain't gonna go." Chest popped out, like, no, this ain't gonna go that way. And he was like, "Oh yeah, it is. Don't worry about it."
Mhm.
Uh, 6.5 hours later, I was literally on the ground in the fetal position, praying to God, saying I'm sorry for all of the transgressions I'd had, all the stuff that I had done.
Mhm.
And literally, with the snap of my fingers, God forgave me. And literally, it was like I had a smoldering fire inside me, and God just fanned it, and it just took off from there. Sarah and I rededicated our marriage while we were there, and we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Church will become a priority for us. On Sundays, we'll go to church. We will get involved in a Bible study. We will start learning and all of that. Um, and that was in July.
Wow.
Yeah, July of 17. Um, Came back from that, and then a few months later, we happened to come to Fort Worth, and I'll never forget it. We're in the Omni Hotel. That's where the reunion is for Operation Hunter Patriots. Once a year or every other year, they do a reunion. So we're there, and all weekend long. And I remember because one, Billy Graham had just died, and the
Mhm.
mood was kind of somber in the room, but I kind of felt really positive, and I wasn't sure why. But all weekend long, I kept hearing God talk to me. He kept saying, "Hey, I want you to go into ministry. I want you to become a pastor. I want you to do this." And I kept just blowing. I'm like, God, you are talking to the wrong somebody. You must have pushed in the wrong headset to me. You must have been trying to get somebody else. There's no way with all the stuff I've done that you want me to do it. And he just
Right.
kept persisting all weekend long. And I finally on Saturday night told Sarah, I was like, "Hey, we need to go to the room and talk." And she's like, "Oh God, what is going to happen? What?" And I was like, "Hey, I think God wants me to go into ministry. This is what he's telling me. And she started crying. She's like, well, you need to call Steve and you need to call Pastor Pat and talk to both of them. So I texted both of them, and both of them were like, hey, meet us in the lobby in 5 minutes. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, okay. And they were like, okay, you have two choices. You can go to Liberty or you can go to Grand Canyon. But I was like, okay, well, I'll go to Grand Canyon and do that. When I balanced it out price wise for the VA, Grand Canyon was cheaper in the
Mm-hmm.
long run. So I knew the VA would approve it. Um, so started that. In that process, the next morning, my phone rang and it was a buddy calling, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go back to Afghanistan?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Yeah, doing what? Contracting?" Immediately I go, "Oh, I'm going to do contracting." He goes, "No, no, no. There's a program called Proper Exit. They take injured guys that were medevaced out of service. I'm going to send you a link. I want you to watch this video." And it was his video of when he had gone back to Iraq. He was a double leg amputee, went back to Iraq, got the tour Iraq, talked to troops and all that. And I was like, okay, this sounds awesome. But Sarah was first, she was hesitant. She was like, no, okay, yeah, you need to do this. It was actually a life changing trip. It was 9 days back in Afghanistan. We flew into Kuwait. We talked to troops in Kuwait, then got on a helicopter, flew to a different base,
Mm-hmm.
flew on a C-130 from Kuwait into Afghanistan, which is
Mm-hmm.
never fun. Um, Brought back memories of long flights that I was just like, oh, this is miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, got to Afghanistan and then started talking to troops. And I could feel God's presence the whole time of talking about how God had changed my life, how this stuff had happened, how, that the second to last day we were flying from Bagram to Kabul, which is about a 45-minute helicopter flight. And I used to wear Tyler's dog tags around my neck always.
Mm-hmm.
And something said, hey, it's time to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
So flying over middle of the desert, nothing around us, I popped his dog tags off and I dropped him out of the helicopter. So his dog tags are somewhere between Bagram and Kabul, Afghanistan. Um, so that started off this trend of coming back and not, I don't want to say healed, because I was still dealing with the PTSD. I was still dealing with all that stuff, but it kind of went away. It was like God said, boom, you're good. And concentrate on school, um, finish school. We happened to come back to Texas for another retreat. And God was like, hey, I think you need to move to Texas. And I kind of mentioned to Sarah, and she was like, yeah, no, no. I came back, got another phone call. Hey, come to Texas, go hog hunt with us. Um, well, then I get in a helicopter crash up near Denton, and I have to make that phone call for the second time to my wife of, hey, I'm in intensive care. I have 8 broken ribs, a broken sternum. Oh, by the way, the leg that's metal, I broke the rod,
Oh
and
my goodness.
I now have broke my tib fib above the ankle reconstruction.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
so she flies here. We, made it through. They flew us back. Like a week later, flew us back to Vegas. We spent a week in rehab in Vegas, and then went home and started rehabbing at home and slowly getting back to where we were. Uh, and a couple of months later, about 2 months later, I had another speaking engagement, but it was in Atlanta. So I was doing speaking engagements for Samaritan's Purse and this other organization constantly. So I was flying from Vegas and all that, and I would come home and I'd be exhausted. So she went with me on this one. On the way home, she looked at me. If you were to look at a map, probably we were over Texas when she said it. She was like, "Hey, we're gonna put the house on the market. We're gonna move to Texas." She goes, "But I get to pick where." So she finds Granbury. We buy our house sight unseen. Didn't see it.
Wow.
Didn't know what Granbury looked like except for Google imaging, and
Wow.
that doesn't do it justice. So the first time we saw it was driving in with a U-Haul truck and our other truck pulling a trailer.
Wow. That's a lot. But
Yeah.
once you got to Texas, I mean, I know that you finished school, and I'm so proud of you.
Yep.
What an accomplishment that was. And so now you really are in ministry full time. So I
Oh
want
yeah.
the listeners to hear how what God is doing now after you've kind of gone into this ministry. That's hard to do, to step out on your own and go into ministry. I know that
Right.
firsthand. So share a little bit about the challenges that you've had there, but also the incredible blessings that you've received by going into
Mhm.
ministry.
So went into ministry going one way of just being a military first responder pastor, just helping first responders. And in that process, God kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to change it a little bit. I want you to go back to school, and I want you to start working on mental health." So I went back to school, got my master's in mental health and wellness in Christian ministry, and I was like, "Okay, that's good." And he's like, "No, no, 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 you're not done yet. I want you to be a counselor. So go back to school again." So I had to go back to school again to get my master's of science in clinical therapy. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, God, this is getting a little expensive here, what? But he literally has blessed us at every turn to, I realized in that process that being on a church staff wasn't where I needed to be. I needed to be
Right.
able to flex. Being at the sheriff's office now as the lead chaplain, I'm able to flex to other agencies within Hood County, Somerville, ERATH, and that to help them when they have a critical incident or they have something happen. So now my sole purpose is jump master life coaches and counseling. And we literally, it was started by me and another pastor friend of mine, Ward Hudson. Dr.
Mhm.
Ward and I pitched the idea to him and he was like, let's do it. So we built our website and we started doing it. And it literally has picked up to where we have 65 clients now.
Wow.
And we stay busy pretty much every day. But it's God works in mysterious ways. We have it where we have the ability to, when the phone rings and there's a crisis, where there's something that they need a chaplain, or there's something, a SWAT call happens and they need a negotiator or something like that. I'm able to flex out to that to go do that to help the community where it needs to be. So I'm not tied down in one place. I'm able to go out and do that. And uh, God's blessings have been enormous. But the ability to have, first responders, there's not a day that goes by that there's not a patrol car, an ambulance, uh, another agency car sitting in my driveway that they're here for counseling.
Mm.
It just works out that way. Where I have other deputies and other people from other agencies saying, "Hey, man, if you need somebody to talk to, here's a guy that understands it. He was a trigger puller. He knows what you're going through. Just give him a call." And it's been all word of mouth. We haven't really advertised except for a few, social media posts and stuff like that. We really don't advertise. We specialize in a field that not a lot of people specialize in. You know, we
Absolutely.
have,
Absolutely.
we have counselors that they specialize in kids, they specialize in this, but we specialize in trauma for first responders
That's so
and
good.
veterans. You know, God has just literally touched us and said, "Hey, this is my plan for you. Here you go," and sit back. And it's great to watch people come in and they have a small religious background or they have no religious background at all. And then, I have it in our informed consent. You want to talk about Jesus, because we have some clients that don't. That's cool.
Mhm.
Not a big deal. We have others that, yeah, I'm curious. And they'll ask questions. And,
Mhm.
we're able to answer those questions and give them a Bible and walk them through it. Say, hey, you need to get involved in a group. You need to do this. So, with all of that, we started doing a home group twice a month in the
Mhm.
house. So we hit our A shift and our B shift where they can come on Sunday afternoon and get fed, just because a lot of them don't have time or And this, it's an excuse, but it's a valid excuse to the fact that they have uh, anxiety being in large crowds. They
Right.
don't feel comfortable. So when they're in a smaller setting of 20 or 30 of their peers in my living room, they're like, "Hey, this is great. We feel
Hmm.
comfortable, and
It's
we're able to."
family.
Yeah, it's family. It's they're able to connect. They're able to get fed, and most importantly, they're able to let their hair down,
Mhm.
and they're not on edge, and they can actually absorb the material, and there's no chaos going on. There's no dumpster fires going on. They're literally able to focus on the message that Jesus Christ is giving them, and
That's
it's
so
just huge to watch them.
That's so good, John. I'm so glad that you came on today. I think what you're doing is just fabulous. I'm so thankful that God called you. He picked the right man. He really did. And he picked the right man that had the right wife that stands with him and that's doing ministry with him, because I know Sarah personally, and Sarah, I know, has your back 100%, and she will stand with you and fight with you this good fight for the good cause of Jesus. And I love that about you too. Amazing
Yeah,
couple. So
she's phenomenal.
she is. She is. I mean, God gave you the best of the best for sure.
Hmm.
So I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to let everyone know
Thanks.
how to get your book, not just your
Okay.
book, but also how to get in contact with you in case they have
Yeah.
someone that is going through this type of trauma, so that they can reach you and get the help that they need, because there are hurting people out there, as you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today with Ministry with Coffee. We are so glad that you are here. We pray that this episode brought you hope and encouragement. And we ask that you like this page, and we also ask that you share it with your friends and your family. Thank you so much again for joining us and for being a part of Ministry with Coffee. Have a great day.